Regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Today's date is the 17th of September, 2018. It's 5:15 p.m. If you follow the roll, please.
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Collins?
Here.
Commissioner Nicholson? Here. And Commissioner Red? Here.
Commissioners, any changes to the agenda this evening? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is public requests. For those familiar with the process, please come forward, give your name and address for the record. The podium is now open.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Robert Duquette, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace, Boca Raton. I'll be brief. I know I did a handout to everybody here, and I just want to clarify a couple of things, misperceptions that I've had from people in the audience as well as from people in the city when I talked to them about the golf course. One, I want to clarify the history of Ocean Breeze. As indicated in this little summary here, in the early 2000s, the members of Boca, which were primarily not residents of Boca, had a choice. They could put in several $1,000s themselves, improve the golf course, and have a nicer golf course and go on from that standpoint. Or they could buy a story from a developer, and in which they did. And the developer promised them 10 years, same dues, and we'll give you a much nicer golf course. We'll take care of all the maintenance items that you wanted, including building a new clubhouse. Well, the developer bought the property for $7 million with $100,000 down. So you can see in the Palm Beach County records, $7 million mortgage on a $7.1 million purchase. Obviously undercapitalized, and they sort of did not follow through, but the members actually made a profit. Many of the members received $12,000 to $13,000, I believe, for selling their membership. So again, from a membership, from an investor standpoint, it was a pretty sweet deal. Golfers, you pocket $12,000 or $13,000, your dues are going to stay the same, and you're going to have a much nicer golf course, as they were promised back in those days. Unfortunately, again, the developer was foreclosed on. After about 5 years of foreclosure, during that period of time, the MCZ Centrum LLC that was formed just for the purpose of owning that was dissolved, and Wells Fargo, which got the property from Wachovia during their merger, they were owed about $17 million, over $17 million on their $7 million original loan. So that was not a good investment for them, but then of course they made a deal with Lennar to sell it to Lennar, which eventually got the Park District for $24 million. So again, there was 300 plus golfers playing this during the season, and so the golf course itself never failed, and so the recipe, I think, for the layout, again, as I had said repeatedly, is a 27-hole regulation golf course. On the next page, I give this to you before. I'm not going to go through this. This shows the comparable yardage, so that there is sufficient land there for the 27-hole golf course, very similar to Osprey. And then the next page, I go through and give you the profit and loss of Osprey going back to 2011 through 2016. That's the most recent information from Palm Beach County that I have in this format. The following page shows all of Palm Beach County's golf properties, including their John Prince Golf Center. That's the only part of the Palm Beach County golf property that lost money. And the ones that I have starred here are 27 holes, of course, Osprey. And again, regardless of what the National Golf Foundation report says as far as profitability, 18 or 27, we can see from public data that 27 holes can be very profitable. We've got a lot of people that have said, as I've said in the past, build a better Osprey. And then even in the very last item on this sheet, on this handout, I just received this today. It says, we're happy to announce from Osprey our summer maintenance is complete and all 27 holes are once again open. Again, one of the other benefits of having 27 versus 18, you can do the maintenance and have a fully functioning golf course for all the residents to enjoy and not have to worry about aeration during the summertime when full-time residents are here. Again, thank you for your cooperation, and I look forward to hearing more at the meeting later today. Thank you.
else?
Good evening. My name is Robert Raymond. I'm a resident at 4874 Sanctuary Lane, and a longtime resident here of Boca Raton, and also kind of intimately familiar with the Boca Tica property, as I could. I'm proud to say that I had an uncle that originally developed it back in the 60s. The turn of events that have happened through time are unforeseen, and I know that this board is kind of milling through the ideas of what you want to do with that land. And I would like to propose that you may consider a new design on the backside, 18 holes, 27 holes, the virtues of that. I'm sure you've heard it ad nauseum. But there's a course in North Carolina at Pinehurst Resort. It's called the Cradle. And the course has recently been designed by Gil Hanse, H-A-N-S-E. It's a 789-yard par 3, 9-hole. And of course, with additional to other golf facilities there, that's very busy. It's brand new. It's a 2017 design. I was just recently there. I escaped from some of the flooding. But the facility really generates a lot of revenue. And being a person around golf my entire life, I understand the virtues also of practicing and having a facility to have a driving range and chipping facilities and so forth. And I know over here at Ocean Breeze there's a lot of property there, and if you decided that you wanted to stay at 18 and if you would at least turn the rest of the facilities into practice and maybe something like this Griddle golf course, it would be, I think, would be fantastic. I just want to thank you for undertaking this project. I surely would hate to see golf go away in Boca Raton. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Yes.
What was the name of it? Pinehurst what?
Pinehurst Resort,
Right, what was
and the course is C-R-A-D-L-E, and it's designed by Gil Hanse, H-A-N-S-E. And this facility, that golf course, that 9 holes is on 10 acres. They charge $50 per play, and every time I go by, it's packed. So if you had a issue with space, that would give an alternative to maybe building the third 9, and where you could also put a training facility in that area for our future. We have Morgan Pressel here locally in Boca, but she's out of the private sector. It'd be nice to see some people come through the golf ranks in the public side. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll close this portion of our meeting. Commissioners, in your packet is the regular meeting minutes from our meeting held September the 4th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously, Joanne. First order of regular business is Petrie Park. Melissa, you were going to, or Brian, you were going to give a little.
We have a few things at Patrick's Boca. Melissa has some stuff to cover too. We have some repairs, obviously, that need to be done out there at the community center, so I'm just gonna let you guys know that we're meeting with city administrative staff this week to talk about how we can accommodate the programs at Patch Reef, at the swimming rackets, and while the building is being repaired or assessed. Moving forward, just something that we're working on, the logistics of it.
Okay.
Also, just wanted to bring your attention to, as a heads up, commissioners, that there are some issues going on at the Patry Park tennis courts. And there's 2 different issues. Right now, there's an issue with resurfacing that was done in 2016, and I'm working with the city gentleman Dragan from Municipal Services. You'll see in the 3rd picture, the last picture, you'll see the sand, that it is sand. It's actually coming up on the courts. It can be quite dangerous. And I have some samples here that I brought in. But in tennis paint, it's a mixture of paint and sand to give it some texture to help with slippage. And also it helps control the ball speed. So all paint, it has sand mixed in it. The problem is some of the sand is coming up and it's causing slippage. And it's everywhere in the courts, and they're having to constantly sweep it off. So we're right now working with Sports Surfacing, who did the resurfacing in 2016. It seems, and I just got the entire file off of Greg Stevens, but it seems the warranty is out on the resurface. So of course, we are in touch with FlexiPave, which is the manufacturer of the resurfacing product that we use. And we're going to see if we can work with FlexiPave because honestly, there was a temporary certificate given to this company, and we're going down the road of asking why was a temporary certificate of application given to this company that just happened to run out after they were done with our product. And now this same company is no longer certified through this company. So just to let you know, there's an issue out there. We're following up to see if we can find out what we can do as far as addressing the issue. Meanwhile, Leslie and her team are continuing to make the courts safe by continuing to blow them and sweep them, etc., to keep them safe in the meanwhile while we're trying to work through this. The other problem that you'll see is these courts were built in 1988, which makes them 30 years old. And I know you don't like to hear this term, and I don't normally also, but the average lifespan of tennis courts is around 25, and we're at 30 now. And what you'll see, there's different types of cracks that will come up on tennis courts. Some of them are surface track cracks, or ones that are don't need to be as concerned about. They can be patched in your resurfacing projects. But some of them are below the surface of the actual asphalt. And if you'll see, I took 2 different pictures of some cracks out there that we have specialists come out and look at. And with the width of them, they're telling me these are infrastructure cracks, and what we were going to do, and this is relatively inexpensive. I've asked for a quote. But it should be really expensive if we go to one corner and take a sample out down to the asphalt, clear that asphalt, and take a look at what we're looking at and what that asphalt would look like to see what the solution is. You know, my proposal to them was, well, is this necessarily something where we're going to have to tear up all the asphalt and completely redo these courts? Or there's also a method where you can go and strip down to the asphalt and put a membrane over all of them. But that membrane would probably only buy you about 5 years, according to this company when I asked them, because the membrane still is made to stretch with the cracks, but it will eventually tear as well. So the cracks are in the infrastructure and continue to pull apart, then that membrane will eventually pull apart as well. So we are waiting results back from this specialty company that came out and took a walk through the facility with us, and we're going to see what their recommendations are, and hope to get a quote back for taking the sample so we can take a look at the asphalt and the infrastructure and what condition it might be in, so that we know better what our options are and what we might have to look at.
What's your timing on that?
We hope to. We emailed the company. Drogan emailed the company today, hoping to get the quotes, and he was supposed to get with the company, because we are working with the manufacturer. Is the person that gave us this person to come out and take a look at them so that he can see what his product is doing. With a local installer that he does have a relationship now, and he had told us he would be getting the recommendation to this company. The company actually asked him to go out there, so he was supposed to send his company to them and us so that we could both see it. And he was the same person that I asked for a quote on what the cost of it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the safety of the courts with the sand, coming up. Can you keep it off the court so people are not going to have problems sliding on that surface?
And one thing that Papco, that was the construction company, came out and looked at it, very knowledgeable gentleman, I liked him a lot, mentioned that we could try, and they've ordered the nozzle for us. We could also try, they have a pressure washer out there, but we needed to order a nozzle that would allow it to be less pressure, and it just to take some of that sand off, and he said that might actually help with it. So that nozzle was supposed to be coming in, but if that nozzle comes in, and when I talked to Drogan today, and he and I both talked about it as a concern we have right there, is if we can get an answer quickly this week and they can be successful in cleaning them, we're trying to get whatever solution might be for a temporary solution to be paid for by somebody other than us.
I like that.
Because we feel like that this was a issue with the resurfacing, and although we don't have anything, and I'm going to read through, I just got the book off of Greg, I'm going to read through all of the information from the bid before, but it seems like the warranty on the installation part will have expired. But if we can hold them, our hope is that we can hold the company that made the FlexiPave more accountable and kind of lean on them to say your product should last for 5 years, and it's 2 years, 1 month in, and this is the issue we're having. This sand and stuff was pre-mixed at the company, so it's not like the local installer installed this, we didn't mixture or anything on site. So.
How often do they have to sweep it or blow it or whatever?
I actually don't know that off the top of my head, but I know when it rains is when it's worst. And that's why he's saying if we went in there with the pressure cleaner at a lower pressure and just did that, it might get some of that comes loose with the rain out of there and clear it out.
Well, you're gonna get
And you
down
can
to,
see, this is the blue marks on this ball. All we did was take this ball and go like this on the tennis courts, and this is the paint that came up from the courts.
well, you know, the sand there is also to give you a little stability with your tennis shoes as well as traction. And if you're blowing the sand off, eventually you're gonna get down to just an unpainted surface, which is gonna be, very slippery. So I'm concerned about getting something on that done as soon as possible, so we know what our options are.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up, and like I said, Robin was getting in touch with the company today and say, do we have any recommendations yet?
And will you get a comparison of the cost of the membrane versus the resurfacing?
Yes, I asked for that, just to give you the board options.
Now, if we resurface, let's forget about the membrane for a second. If we went and resurfaced the entire court, we would have to literally strip down to the sand. Am I correct?
Yes, you would take the asphalt off. It'd be a complete rebuild almost, except for you would have some subbase, there's compacted sand, and then there's gravel on top of that, and then your asphalt.
Okay.
So you would have to go down and repair the asphalt. You may have to fill in some spots with some of the gravel, because it's compacted hard, just to re-level it. And you would want, if you go that far, you want to do that. Because if you're gonna take it down that far, you wanna do, so that's what we're looking at. Now, I asked him, I said, how can we tell when we get the sample of asphalt, what's it gonna look like? And he explained to me that you could tell by taking the sample of asphalt and going down to it, that there'll be a discoloration in the asphalt, that it's starting to give way and needs to be replaced.
And what kind of timeline are we looking at for the courts that would be out of commission?
We would have to rotate them as far as, you wanna do them in sets, and we talked about that. They're set up, we probably wanna do them in sets of 4, and close them down, finish those, and as they're wrapping up these, go ahead and start on these, and then rotate them through.
And how long?
I honestly don't know the answer to that, and I don't wanna make something up, so.
Great.
How many courts are there?
17,
That all affect, all 17 are affected?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, surprising that the paint came up the way it did in 2 years.
Yeah, I was concerned about whether somebody mixed it wrong, and there was just too much sand in the mixture.
Well, it came from the manufacturer, they did their specs, so
Yeah.
there's the problem there. They probably will blame the contractor for putting it down on a too hot surface or too cold surface or whatever.
But our question is, it's awfully suspicious to us that we literally have a copy of a certificate, temporary certificate of application that they gave them that lasted literally 3 months, and they don't have a relationship with this installer anymore. So,
Is this guy still in business, the installer?
yes, he is. We had him come out and take a look at the courts, and he's not interested, does not seem interested at all in helping us because the warranty is out.
He has no liability at all.
Not a whole lot, because the warranty's out and the work is done warranty, but it was not a good job that was done.
Unfortunately, poor workmanship is not covered by
Yeah.
insurance.
Well, they went out there that day, and on the very day that I collected all of this, their person said that she didn't see any sand out there.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and yet I collected this. Now, was this sitting right on the courts? No, because they were blown off and cleaned off. It was on the sidewalks between, like you'll see in the picture I gave you. But I see, we just took pictures and paper and pulled it up. So you see what you want to see. And if you see that the product's going to be yours, you don't want to see it all of a sudden.
Well, listen, we need answers pretty quick, and certainly let the staff know that we're concerned about, the safety issue there too, and keep doing what they're doing to keep the courts playable, and otherwise we have to close them.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, comments here says temporary recess meeting. Is there anything else that we want to cover, Art?
Let me just bring up 2 comments on Patrick Park. First, we are on schedule with the artificial surface. The bid documents are complete, and we should be looking to go out for bid within the next 60 days and commence construction in January as we had anticipated. But on a larger scale, we're hearing about deterioration of tennis courts because of age. It's not because of lack of maintenance. The city's been very diligent in resurfacing these courts. All of the resurfacing has been done by the city. And I don't necessarily believe that there is a problem per se in application or oversight in the process. I think what we're looking at is age. We opened this park in 1982, and about 2 years ago we recognized the difficulty that we had out there with the age of some of these facilities, and we engaged a consultant to come in and give us a master plan with some recommendations. We never followed up on that for various reasons. But I think that it would be wise and prudent in evaluating all of these projects. We evaluate them in the context of an overall master plan for what needs to be done at Patrick Park. Because we're just going from item of park, item of park, item of park, and pretty soon we'll be redoing everything. So my suggestion is we start to get together a master plan and list of priorities, because we've even had issues with the integrity of the community center that we have out there. And it's too valuable a piece of property, and not to say that we're ignoring it, we're not, but it is time for us to maybe start dusting off a master plan and start looking again at what needs to be done to truly make that consistent with the rest of our other facilities in the community.
I agree with Mr. Kosky. But I guess how you get to that master plan, rather than being driven by us, I would encourage us to do for each of the parks that we're involved with, to have more of a community-based group that we let them do more, get more involved with it. And I think of it more like the Friends of Gumbo Limbo, the Friends of the Library. It's our volunteers that do things. So when the volunteers, the Clinton brothers come in for the AstroTurf Pruitt Fields, I, for one, am not really keen on converting grass to AstroTurf, but I am a big supporter of the volunteers, and I think we all are, who run these programs and really do a phenomenal job, whether it's Sabre, whether it's, you know, the lacrosse group. But what we don't have here, and what we're missing at Sugar Sand and Patch Reef, is that volunteer-based group that is really guiding us with all the fundamental things. Otherwise, this group, or we have to hire someone, or the city's telling us. And I think somehow we need to think about that pretty carefully, because you will also need that over at the Boca National Forest or Ocean Breeze. You need someone else at a volunteer basis to really be engaged. And when I say really engaged, you take the example here. They make money at Gumbo Limbo because they have volunteers there asking for $5 donations when they walk into the park. We're not really set up like that. It's more of a city building here. We have 2 people sitting behind a desk. No one's asking for money. I think people would donate money if there was the right setup with it. But I think somehow that's our first starting point. And then we get the volunteers to tell us what they really want done on at Patch Reef. Rather than us telling them what we're going to do, they will guide us more and we'll fund it.
Didn't we approve a needs assessment, which we're funding that, and I think that's probably the first step.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I think volunteers are wonderful to have to a certain point, but the decision ultimately rests with us and what we want to do, and their input's important, and which is the reason why we spend a lot of time with public requests hearing from the public part.
If you recall, when this facility was built, there was a proposed community group that was going to come in and operate a large portion of this park, and it never materialized.
Yeah, there is some
But they built the what's over there, all the telephone poles and the playground. That was a volunteer-based group.
No, but I'm talking about this entire
Yes,
building.
absolutely.
Yeah, there was back when I moved here, there was a Science Explorium downtown at the old Boca Mall. It was flooded every time it rained. We had hoped that they would come up, because we did engage them to help us with the science.
And they did for a while.
Exploring, yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, but I think that, certainly input from the users is always valuable. And I'd like to see what I would imagine that the needs assessment will involve some type of community input. I can't imagine doing it in a vacuum without getting information from the users.
That makes a lot of sense. The needs assessment, the community needs assessment is kind of like a top-down approach, and then the volunteers are more your bottom-up approach. But you need both to really make it work. We're all really volunteers here, so, I mean, we need to fund those projects where we have the volunteers really engaged.
Okay. Certainly keep that in mind when we get the needs assessment and discuss going further with that. Anything else, Art?
No, sir.
At this point, we shall temporarily recess and convene across the hall at the Well Theater, and then we'll finish up the rest of the meeting after we hear from our consultant and close that portion of the meeting. Melissa, anything else? All right, we'll consider the meeting convened across the hall.
You'll bear with us, we'll do the requirement opening of the meeting. This is a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners, September the 17th, 2018. It's now 6 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang? Here. And Commissioner Rowe? Here.
Commissioners, any changes to the agenda this evening? Hearing none, then the next order of business is a public request, and we'll open the floor
to comments from the public. After we hear from the architects, I'm sure there'll be some additional questions that would be happy to extend the courtesy of having comments from the floor. And at this time, if you wish to make a comment, we have microphones that will be in the audience. And if you would, just give your name and address for the record, and we'll be happy to hear your comments this evening.
Who wants to go first? Anybody wants to speak?
I think everyone wants to hear the architects, our consultants' comments this evening. And Jacob Horowitz, are you fine with us just going to the architects and then hearing from the public afterwards? Okay. Our attorney says it's okay, and it's okay with them, and it's certainly okay with us. So at this point, Wayne, I ask you to come forward and start the discussion on the status report of our project over at Boca National.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Koski, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, I just need the remote control. Brianne?
Microphone on the podium.
Yes, yes.
The podium. Microphone on the podium.
The microphone works right here, yes.
I don't think that works. Sorry, the card face wasn't very big on this one. But just to start out this evening with an update on the project. Basically the work on engineering, the geotechnical studies, as well as the boundary, topo, and tree surveys is ongoing, and we expect to have that completed towards the end of this month. We have already obtained a part of the tree survey on the northwest property, and that's allowed us to begin working with our landscape partner on the tree disposition and the tree plan for that particular parcel. With regards to environmental, we're waiting to hear back whether an archaeological survey is required. And besides that, we've had the National Golf Foundation update their original report that they provided quite a few months ago, I think now, and also provide a summary of what we're looking at in terms of how that relates to option one. And so that'll give everybody a better understanding of how the financials actually work, comparing the options, one from each other. Essentially, with an approval of the master plan here, hopefully tonight, that allows us to continue with a lot of work now. We really are able to begin work on all aspects of the project, including getting the National Golf Foundation to, I guess, first complete their study. That they have a preliminary report for us today, but to have them complete that summary, that study in full, and then also to do a survey on the supply and demand of the event market in Boca Raton, so that we can understand what the design program for the clubhouse is going to be, how big it should be, what elements should be there, what elements should not be there. So as I say, that where we are now, we've really just worked on the golf course routing, as well as some other work, but this really opens up everything as we'll begin conceptual design on the clubhouse, on restrooms, on all the amenities within the project. We begin some of the detailed golf course design work. So we've really been running in first year right now, and with the approval of a master plan, that'll allow us to really get moving. I provided a preliminary schedule. Fortunately, it just hasn't gotten big enough yet. But essentially, we're here towards the end of September, that green line, and that work is some of the studies, the engineering studies, the environmental studies that we've done, as well as the golf course routing plan there. So after tonight, everything to the right of that line, you can see all of that work begins. And we've basically got this divided into phase one and phase two. Phase one is conceptual design and development of the master plan. And phase two is the design development, detailed design development and permitting processes. So, as I say, here we go. All of this work now begins at this point. So we hopefully after tonight we've got a lot to do.
Wayne, could you just flash forward and give us a timeline as to completion date, since it's not very clear as to where we are in that process?
To be honest, I'm planning to read it myself. So I think we expect to have all the conceptual design of the clubhouse. The clubhouse is going to take the longest within this conceptual design here. We're in no hurry to get it done. We want to do it right, and that's going to take some time, especially with the permitting process. But this takes us through the end of the year into the first part of the year. So I can't see what that date is.
You've got a copy in front of you now.
Oh, thank you. When you now it's lost. It was fine on the computer screen. I apologize. So the clubhouse study will take us into January. The clubhouse study and the conceptual design. So by that point, we'll have had all of the studies, the engineering study, tree surveys, environmental, Obviously, the golf course routing will have been done by that point, but also the maintenance center, restrooms, temporary clubhouse, conceptual design for parking as well, the landscaping on the golf course. So all of that will be done we anticipate, towards the end of January next year. With regards to design, the actual detailed design, we get into that now with the golf course, and that essentially takes us through, including the permitting, through to June of next year. So that's the golf course there. That takes us into June of 2019. This year is arranging, bid and selecting the golf course contractors, the golf course landscaping, design and permitting, clubhouse design, and then these are the teaching facilities as well as the maintenance center, etc. So that takes us out to September 2019. We haven't gotten into that at this point, to be honest with you. No. Well, look, if we have a 5-month permitting process for the golf course, if the city is able to help us reduce that period, or to where we can get that done quicker, then we can start quicker for sure. But actually, that is an ideal point in which to start the construction at that time of year, because then you're not grassing going into the hurricane season. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the timing.
So, in terms of plans for us to get ready for design, once we get the civil engineer information, which they're working on now, it's only probably 60 days for us to do the golf course design details. Then it goes back to the civil engineer, he incorporates it in his plans, and then it starts the permitting process. Am I right? About 5 months. So the typical permitting process is about 5 months. If that can get reduced at the same time that we're doing that permitting, while they're doing the permitting process, we can do the bidding and negotiations and get the contractors lined up. So if that permitting process happens quicker, we can pull the trigger as soon as we're allowed to pull the trigger. I would say, the more time you give the contractor, ideally, it would be a better price, right? So if you give them a year, it's going to be a better price than if you give them, 3 months. I mean, we could get 3 different contractors and stick them on each 3 parcels. It wouldn't be ideal, but if you want it done in 2 months and pay a lot more, we can accommodate those things. So we'll run all those numbers and we'll figure out. But what happens is you have a grassing window, and it's a very big grassing window in Florida, which is great. But then you have a hurricane season. So ideally, if we could get it grown in or substantially grown in before July, then we have a lot less chance of spending a lot more money for sod and more so fixing washouts. So the problem is when you say, okay, if I have a 5-month sort of like block, and then growing the grass is actually, if you do it if you planted the grass in June, you could have the grass playable in 90 days. If you plant the grass in December, you're going to be, you're almost not going to catch up because you're just not going to get a lot of growing. So depending on when you start, when you grass, and when it grows in, so that's kind of a shifting thing, right? So ideally, the best case scenario is you do the majority of the construction during the winter when it's not raining. You can get a lot of good work days. You grow it, you start grassing it right before the rainy season. You get it established before the rainy season. The rainy season helps it grow in the rest of the way, and then you open it, ideally October or here before that.
So we're going to take time frame or wait?
Yes, either it's an absolute rush to the, to get started, or you take your time and you get better pricing and I'm not even sure that we do have the option to rush through it, because there may be civil engineering issues that we just have to get through, in terms of storm drainage. Are we going to drain the one parcel or the other side? Do we have to do all the calculations and stuff like that? So, but we're dying to get started. So, we're happy to do it, and any help that we can get from the, Boca, that we don't have to go through every one of the steps would be great. But we're this schedule is anticipating the normal go through every step. So, if there's a way to speed that up.
Obviously, this is a preliminary schedule. Now, in getting into some of the design and getting into more of the conceptual design, we'll be able to sit down with the rest of our team and really schedule all of those, all of the work in a lot more detail. And so I anticipate by the time of our next meeting, we'll have an even more detailed schedule for you and a better understanding of exactly where we're going to be when. Any other questions? So, just to pick up where we left off last week, I think the objectives of the district, we know, was to build a world-class facility, a facility that would be a golf destination, that would be available to all Boca Raton residents, no matter what skill level, designed to meet the needs of all players, whether they're juniors, beginners, seniors, whatever the case may be, for us to incorporate environmental practices into the design, and that it would be a financially sound project. So with that in mind, we began the process of looking at the existing golf course. And I think, as many of you remember, this parcel on the east side is by far, but it is a better piece of property. 72 acres, a little bit less than the largest parcel here in the northwest of 80 acres. This parcel, being a bigger parcel, contained just the tennis courts here, whereas on the smallest parcel, the southwest parcel, it contained the clubhouse over here in the corner. So, as you can see, there's 9 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes, and they had a range that was built in the late 60s in this particular area here. So, the one thing in starting with a golf course or a project that's already surrounded by homes, streets, and boundaries is that those become the constraints. So we started with 200 acres, usable acres, and we can't grow that property. We would love to somehow get under 95 into that other piece of parcel there, but that's just not possible. So we had to look at really what we could do with this parcel without any preconceived ideas or anything like that. So this, as I said, the northwest parcel is the largest area for golf. Smallest parcel was the southwest, a much more difficult configuration, and a little bit shorter golf course on this side. It also had the maintenance facility within that southwest parcel, which, as we started to route the golf course here, we realized we could not leave it in place, so we had to find a place for that maintenance center. And as I say, with the topography on the east parcel, by far this is the better piece of property. So we did an extensive site review. as I said, previous configuration, 27 holes, clubhouse range, an ideal combination. And the way that we begin the design process is to understand what space we have and what fits. And I've discussed the constraints. The objectives, our objective was to locate the best 18 holes of golf initially. And thereafter, locate the remaining amenities with 9 holes, clubhouse, maintenance center, hotel. So, laying out the golf course, option 3, so option 3 is a 27 full 9-hole, 3 9-hole, 27-hole facility. The clubhouse being located here, that's the existing hotel site here. This 9 plays and takes up all of this room here. We've got no extra room here or here, but we do have 27 holes of good golf, there's no question. So in creating that, we looked at it and said, you know, what do we actually have with that? And
Is there a driving range there?
no driving range. Does not fit a driving range, unfortunately. Just 27 holes. So 27 holes, clubhouse, no range. I guess the hotel site to be determined. But as we said, the pros of the fact that we have 27 holes, which in all 3 configurations provides you with flexibility with maintenance in closing 9 holes at a certain time. The cons, well, you begin to lose people without a range. You have none of the high schools, none of the universities have a range, and therefore they'll go elsewhere. We have no teaching programs, so your kids, well, any golfers without teaching programs are going to go somewhere else. You've got no learning center. You're definitely not going to get the kids show up there and wanting to play golf, and they step on the first tee and they've already got other seasoned golfers playing behind them who expect them to play quickly, who expect them to play well, and so you have that. I mean, that's an inherent problem with that. You've got no warm-up facility. A range is inherent to the game of golf. It's part of golf. And as some of us know, the older you get, the more warm-up you need to get going. Present company excluded. Also, we have no income stream from a range in losing that. So there's a loss of income from that. And I think ultimately we lose the ability to reach everybody within Boca Raton. And so to me that's a big no-no. The National Golf Foundation report was based on 27 holes with a range. So we believe that the expectations that they originally had will fall short due to the loss of range revenue. Also, the hotel area is unable to expand, and it may be less of an opportunity to find a developer who would want to work just in that small contained square as opposed to extending it out into this area. So right now that is the hotel parcel. If we do 9 holes here, we can't extend that area and create potentially a resort or a larger hotel. So in talking about the range, if you look at the 3 ranges, this is the old Ocean Breeze range. There is a marked difference here, and I can assure you, this is not something that we've dreamt up. Any engineer will tell you that the width of that range is 74 yards. You can compare that with Osprey at 150 and Boca at 193. So you've you've got a massive safety problem here. Because this range here, you've got a hole playing up here, and you have a hole playing to the right of it too. So you have traffic on both sides, and only 74 yards to land the ball in safely. In terms of length, I think again you can see using the tee back, the front of the range tee, which is where you need to measure it from. So on a day when people are playing off the front of this tee, how long is that? That's 234 yards. If you look, even Ospreys at 292, and they were built a few years ago. And so if we had to build a range in this area, this house here is not a problem. It's these houses further back here that are a problem, because that's where the ball will be landing. It's so short. It just, unfortunately, does not work. I think you can see that the way that we've laid out this range, I think this is 580 feet, the width here. This is 580 feet wide here, which is, I believe, 100, I can't see those numbers now off the top of my head, but it's 180 feet wider than this range here at Osprey. And they have placed a golf hole alongside of it here as well. So what, in terms of what we've done or what we anticipate doing with this range, is to move it as much as possible to this side, away from any area here, and provide a large buffer, larger than usual. And so we've taken every step to make sure that that range stays on this side. And that width there is that width there, just of the range. I'm not talking about, remember there's the old golf course used to play up along this here. So we've taken golf completely out of this area. Nobody can play in this area. So that's our anticipation. Well, that's our intention of designing this range. We also have chipping areas, short courses down here, and depending on what we do with the hotel, we have an option to continue and have an additional facility up here as well. Teaching building would be located here. So what happens with this becomes what should be a large source of revenue, because you have easy access to it. It's a great place to be out here. You can chip and putt, you can hit balls down here all day, same thing back here. And then if you just want to play a few holes, your short course is just over here. So that's an option if we do the range in this, whatever we deem fit here. So I think, ultimately option one satisfies I think everything that most people are looking for, or that golfers in general are looking for. I think I've been through all of these before, and I've always we believe that this configuration provides the best option for long-term financial success, because there's a structure in place to go out to the community and get kids involved in this. You could drop them off here on a Saturday and leave them the whole day, and they can spend time. That is possible for those who haven't yet got the skills yet to come on to their 18. They can spend the whole day out. They can enjoy teaching programs. In addition, you can go out to seniors within the communities, create days where you're bringing seniors to play golf, those who have never played golf. So there's so much more in option one that the community has offered at the end of the day. We don't see any negative with this option. So I think
destination. You can come out, you can do all kinds of things. You don't even have to play golf. You can practice, work on your short game, hang out at the clubhouse. It really is a golf destination. It's available to all Boca Raton residents and visitors. It's designed to meet the needs of all skill levels, and we'll design it with environmentally friendly approach. And it is a financially sound project. So I think we've met, with option one, I think we've met the needs of the district. With that in mind, Ed Gatherall is from the National Golf Foundation. They have, excuse me, they have taken their original report that they did for the district a few months ago and re-looked at that in terms of, excuse me, of losing the driving range. I think Ed will tell you that at that time, they do not have architectural services in their facility, so they weren't sure whether a range would fit. And so anyway, now they have all the information. Ed has updated that. In addition, he's also looked at the option one to see as a comparable how financially comparable the two routes are.
Thank you, Wayne, and good evening. Just a little background on our involvement with the project. First of all, National Golf Foundation is an independent third party. Our consulting division has been around for 30 years. Although we are in favor of the game of golf or pro golf, we are independent when we do these types of studies. And we've probably had far more negative studies than positive studies over the last 10 years as golf has taken a hit in many parts of the country. The way our involvement started, as I saw an article about the tenure of this golf course, it's over a year ago now already. And I contacted the city initially. This is how we prospect. Can we help you with feasibility analysis? And I met with the city, I think the interim city manager who recommended I speak with Art. And long story short, we were brought on to do a feasibility study for a 27-hole facility on the Ocean Breeze site. I should mention, I think there's been a misconception out there that we recommended 27 regulation holes, but I think it was the preference of the district that if it could be done to have 27 regulation holes and the driving range and the golf academy, that was the way to go. And I think if you did have the land for that, absolutely that would be the way to go. Because 27 regulation holes give you, flexibility with holding tournaments at the same time as daily feed play, et cetera. But all of our studies are contingent on further study by engineers and golf course architects and what have you. And we noted that if site constraints could be overcome, one of which is the size of the property, then this is the way to go. But as it turns out, after the RFP process, after the RFP was issued, I know we were fielding calls left and right from architects saying, why did you recommend 27 holes here? Which we didn't recommend it, but that was the concept we were asked to study. The market impact, I think we were even conservative in our views. There's examples of really high net cash flowing facilities in South Florida. Right in your own Boca Raton, Osprey Point nets close to $2 million, which is extraordinary. It's one of the highest netting golf facilities in the entire country in terms of municipal golf. Plantation Preserve is another highly profitable facility. Delray Beach makes money. So when you couple it with the fact that Boca Muni would be closing, so you're removing supply from the market, you certainly think that golf is going to cash flow positively here. I should note that we're not saying covering debt service or anything else, we're talking about on-site expenses. So the results of our first study, assuming the 27 holes regulation along the golf academy and the driving range, showed a net stabilized cash flow at about $500,000, a little over $500,000. Again, it was all contingent on it could physically be done. So I guess 6 or 8 months passed by, and then Wayne contacted us to take another look, given that there are site constraints. If you were going to do a range, it'd be very tight, very short, not safe. So with the goal of providing overall maximum value to the community, programming, getting kids and families and all kinds of specialized program, PGA Junior League, drive, chip, and putt, all these things that are good not just financially, and not only cultivate golfers for the future, but they're also, ultimately demand drivers for the golf course in the present, in the short term. So we did take a look at the 18-hole regulation with a short course with Golf Academy and with a regulation driving range, and it didn't cash flow as positively. It was about $150,000 short of what we showed from a net aspect of the 27 holes that we initially looked at. However, when we equalized for the fact that that first concept wasn't possible because of the site constraints, this is virtually equal in terms of net operating revenue, but it definitely provides a lot more benefits in terms of programming to the community. We did use the same fee assumptions. I should mention in our initial feasibility study and this little update is that we didn't look at market rate, and we think market rate for a really world-class facility here is easily over $100 for non-residents and $80, $90 for residents probably. However, we recognize that with Boca Municipal going away, the district and the city probably wanted to preserve some affordable golf for residents. So we really looked at this below market rate and kind of dropped the fee structure for Boca Community onto this site. So that's public policy. I mean, if you told us it was a private owner, we would say you probably could get away with $100 easily plus green fees. I know I spoke to the director of golf at Osprey Point, and they're priced artificially low, and as a result, they're doing 100 plus thousand rounds on 27 holes, which I'm sure their superintendent isn't crazy about when they can be doing 70,000 rounds at a much higher price point. So just wanted to mention that. One thing that is possible here, we think, depending on the quality of the golf course, is what we like to call the Torrey Pines model, and there's examples in this market where the non-resident rates are significantly higher than resident rates. There's different ways you can do that. You can make it out-of-state rates. You can make it non-Boca Raton rates are considered non-resident. But it's basically a model where, Torrey Pines is an extreme example, but their peak fees for non-residents are about $250, $270, where their residents are well below $100. An example in this market is Miami Beach Golf Club, which charges $250 for non-residents and is less than $100 for residents. So that's another consideration down the road, is maybe charging market rate for non-residents, but affordable rates for residents. But that's not really part of this scope now. We'll be looking into that depending on the direction from the district and the city. So running the numbers, as I mentioned, equalizing for the fact that the range and the Golf Academy were not really possible on that tight site. Once the architects got a look at it, it looks perhaps marginally less profitable. But again, we were very conservative. We knocked the rounds played down to 50,000 on the regulation 18, another 10,000 on the short course, and at artificially low rates given the quality of the product that we expect here. Another thing we were conservative on is the Golf Academy. We assumed a net to the district. We assumed it would perhaps be a concession, at least like a David Ledbetter Academy or something like that. So we assumed $20,000 or $30,000 in net profit to net payments to the district. So we didn't project that as a big money maker, but its benefit is really ancillary to the direct revenues it's going to generate. I think that's about it. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're independent. We have no skin in the game. We definitely are pro golf, but at the end of the day, what ultimately happens here doesn't affect us. So I just want to ensure everybody that this was an independent study, both the initial one and this update, which is really in its infancy. We wanted to attack the financial aspect of it first, and maybe helping with different things like the clubhouse programming, as Wayne mentioned, a little further down the road.
Thank you very much. Wayne, is there anything else you'd like to address before we open it up to public comments?
No, I think that's all for me.
Okay. At this time, then, we'll open up the meeting to comments from the members of the audience. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record. And, the floor is now open. Just raise your hand and our legal staff will get to you.
Christiane Joy, 6,000 Northwest 2nd Avenue, apartment 237. I would just like to find out what is going to be happening Northwest 2nd Avenue. There's going to be an enormous amount of traffic. Is that going to be changed?
Just to answer on a global level that question, I know we're doing a traffic study, which is a part of the process to evaluate traffic flow and traffic congestions. At this point, I don't know that we have any idea as to how much or how little or which way the traffic would be directed, but hopefully we can get the traffic directed in off of Clintmore from the west to minimize traffic on 2nd Avenue. But I'll leave that to the engineers to determine.
Good evening. I'm Ken Landau, I'm at 5700 Northwest 2nd. That's condo 3. We are right next to the hotel parcel, which means we're on the course you're looking at to put the driving range. What I want to know is, what am I going to see when I'm sitting on my balcony? Am I going to see nets? Am I going to see a building? What do the designers have in mind for what we will see?
One moment, Tommy. Go ahead.
If I can get back to the one picture, explain visually.
Here we go.
So you're around here somewhere?
Yep, we're right next to that parcel, that's ours.
Okay, so right now, what's out there existing was, the existing hole was playing south, so you had a tee here.
Correct.
You were playing down here, the green was here. And there's an existing ridge or mounding right around here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to add to that mounding. And then we're gonna relocate some of the existing big trees on top of this mounding. We're gonna save these, there's like 2 or 3 really, really nice oak trees right here. And right from the get-go, we'll shape this tee under those trees so it forces the balls left. So so your target will play out here. If you look at these existing trees, they'll be remaining. And then we'll take some of these big trees and we'll put them on this. And so what you'll see here is you'll see, golf course grass, some big canopy trees, and then some landscaping underneath them.
So you're figuring it's going to run north-south for the range?
Yeah, but if you look at the way the tee is angled, we're taking this, so if you were on the extreme right side of this tee right here, your line, your target line would be this right here. Right, so then this is all gonna be landscaped out. And then if you're on this tee, we're gonna do the same thing in the opposite direction. We're gonna landscape you and we're gonna force you. So even though it's playing north and south, we're gonna angle the tees and we're gonna place all of the target greens where you're playing and you're aiming a little bit more towards the train tracks.
resort sort of community, the part that he was talking about? Is the Boca Raton going to invite groups to have group meetings there or weddings there to interject the income of the facility there? Are they going to have a space there that creates kind of like an ambiance there for some of these groups? I know that many golf courses score $15,000-$20,000 per event, which would really interject the city by offering that sort of thing after charities. They have big dinners, they have big auctions, things like that. Is that part of the planning of that resort thing, or is that sort of going to be in the clubhouse? And then my question is, where's the parking?
For those large events, they really do require a lot of parking.
I'm sorry, please get the lady's name for the record, please.
My name is Julie Phelps, and I own a unit in Santa Vance, which is the 467th Street.
Just to answer your question, unfortunately at this point, everything is conceptual. We haven't looked at what's going to go there, whether it can go there, how much parking is required around the clubhouse, and how much can go there. So we really don't have any of those answers at this point. But as we move forward and get more information from our consultants, including consultants that will study some of those areas and provide us with information, anything we'll be able to identify what we intend to do.
Well, my name is Art Foley, WLY, 5340 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I'm on that south end of the East Course, next to the 5700 gentleman. Was there any consideration given to what the impact of a range might do to the property values of all of us that live there? Question.
Well, to answer your question, I think the impact to your property values are going to be on the plus side with being a golf course there rather than an empty lot. And I think that we're going to see an improvement in that. And the way that the driving range is set up, I don't see there being an impact on the aesthetics of your property.
I respectfully disagree with you, sir. I really do. I've lived there for 30 years. I've owned property there for almost 40 years. I was the president of the old club when it was a club, a private club. We had a lot of complaints from the people who were at the old range and what it did to their values. I'm just asking the question. And I don't think anybody in his right mind would like to see nets in front of their porches.
But we're not speaking of the nets there. I think Mr. Fazio mentioned there's going to be canopy trees and a berm along that area. And there's not going to be nets on any part of the property as far as I know, right, Mr. Fazio? Right.
We don't anticipate. I've played with a lot of his golf courses. I love his designs. I just don't want his net on my backyard, that's all. But thank you.
Yeah, we agree. Let me say this. With the mounting the rigs that we put in, the balls will be on this side. From this side of the opposite side of the range, I don't think you'll know that there's a range there. I don't think.
My ears, thank you.
Yeah, you won't see the you won't see the balls. You won't be looking out at a range that has 5,000 balls on it. You won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see up and over the mounting through the trees and then all the protection there. And let me just say this in general, which I don't know if we're conveying this. 200 acres for what we have is not really enough space. If this was we're talking in hypotheticals. If this was an absolute square and it was 200 acres, there would be a lot better chance of fitting 27 holes in a driving range. But every time that there's a property line or a buffer, then I have to allow for more space. And so, if you look at all of the edges, there's a lot of edges here. So all of these things are edges, and so I have to allow for more space on that. But with that being said, with what we have, we're actually spacious. So we're not tight with this design. And so the dilemma is, we don't want to try, we don't even feel that we can squeeze 27 holes in a driving range on a piece of property that doesn't fit, when we can do 18 holes, a great 9 holes, a great driving range, and then actually have a lot more space. And so this is, we keep talking about space, and you may get the impression that this is a tight layout. It's not at all. In fact, it's actually fairly wide. And it's wide because it's not enough room to do 4-hole corridors. It's enough room to do 3-hole corridors, but again, like I said in the last meeting, you can't do 3 holes, but you get stuck somewhere. So this layout is actually a very spacious layout. This is this exceeds the normal width on many development golf courses. So we don't really anticipate having any issues.
Andrew Dixon. I'm purchasing one of the houses on the end of 64th Street. Just curious, I guess one, is there a landscape plan you can get online somewhere? Is there a landscape plan somewhere to get online?
No, not yet.
Do you have like something, I know there was a cart path on 64th when you enter the street. I was just curious what you guys are going to be doing there.
I don't know which one is. Yeah, there's not a design.
North,
Here.
down,
You go like, go up, and there's like a street that goes down those houses.
Oh, this?
Yeah, it's like a little cart path. I was just curious.
This is all conceptual right now. We're anticipating a lake. We do have this lake on this side, so we can't put the car path on that side. So
across. I was just wondering.
Yeah, but everything will be landscaped. I mean, we'll
sure.
tie the whole thing in.
Yeah, I know you guys are doing a good job. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And then the second question was the hotel. Like, do you guys have a flag in mind, or how many keys is it? Just out of curiosity, I have a friend that works for a developer, and they already looked at it, but it was kind of just didn't seem feasible to do a hotel there.
Yeah, we're about to start a feasibility study.
Okay. Cool. So you don't have there's no flags picked out or anything like that?
We don't know what to do with it yet. We're going to have somebody do a feasibility study.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell us whether we should develop a hotel or develop
something else. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So they will know.
Hello, my name is Larry Milkey. I'm at 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I've been a resident since 2006. And I can remember playing at Ocean Breeze. I don't understand why we're reinventing the wheel here unless I missed it in a meeting. Why can't we just keep the 27, make the driving range an iron driving instead of a driver? Let people use the irons and just be finished with it. Clean it up and make it beautiful looking.
Well, having a driving range and telling people to hit irons is tantamount to telling people to drive at the speed limit.
Right, but you also, I don't know what the cost is, but I understand the driving range.
Yeah, we could not be part of designing something that's unsafe. We couldn't put the district at risk. We couldn't put ourselves at risk.
Okay, but again, I've been here since 2006. And that was always a driving range there. Now all of a sudden it's a catastrophe.
I'm correct. Yes, I think I went through the points of the ranges and how the distances are different, and the widths become dangerous to keep the range where it is.
Right. It just seems that the golf course has been here a long time, and the driving range has been there probably 30 years, if not longer. And now it's an issue. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Norman Mavis, 3198 Northwest 56th Street, Boca Raton. Compliment your new design. Really exciting. We'll be leaning towards entertainment and restaurants. Is it conceivable that the hotel area could be something like a Top Golf or entertainment where families are coming, golf, watching football events and so on? Is that possible?
I think it's too early to say at this point until we get some idea from a consultant as to what we should do there, and then it's a case of whether that works for what we're trying to do with this project.
I would say that I've seen Top Golf facilities from a distance, never had to participate in one. But if the gentleman was concerned about netting, he would certainly be concerned about the netting of the top line.
but as far as the other, Mr. Matus, those are concepts we haven't gotten. We're focusing on trying to get the golf course itself up and running, and at the same time doing the feasibility study on what's available to us on the other portions of the property from vertical structures.
Jerry Lynn Schultz, 5291 Northwest 3rd Terrace. Any consideration of putting a tunnel second in?
Yes, we're looking at all of our options at this point, and we won't know until our engineering studies are complete.
Sue Dino, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I came in a few minutes late and I apologize, but what kind of time frame are we looking at? We were told at a meeting a few months ago that you were going to start demolition, and it was supposed to be done in a few weeks in September. So we're almost at the end of September and we haven't seen anything. So we were looking for some sort of a time frame when things will start and a completion date.
As far as the demolition, we're waiting for permits from the city. One of our most recent setbacks has been Florida Power and Light. They're quite busy with, most of their crews go up to assist in hurricane operations. So there are quite a few meters all around the golf course property, and we're trying to get them all shut off before we start any kind of demolition.
Mike, we've had asbestos studies done on those buildings, which were part of the reason for the delay in any permits, because that was necessary if we were going to demolish that, because there's debris that had to be treated differently, and the demolition had to be done in a way that didn't disturb the asbestos in the environment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So we had a study done. There is some asbestos in the hotel building only. The other buildings don't have anything. The hotel building has it in the popcorn ceiling. You can imagine that. So once we get this permit, which is going to be very soon, so FP&L told me that they should have everything shut off this week. We have environmental, we have to meet with the fire department, as a matter of fact, tomorrow to go over a life safety plan. They want to know exactly how the buildings are down, in what order, so they can be there in case there's ever going to be issues. We should have the building, we should have the permit within a week, two at the most, depending on FP&L. And once we get that permit issued and we get the contractor out at the site, it's a 12-week process. Most of it is the asbestos removal. They do that selectively, carefully, and they make sure that that's all done.
Yeah, that's Mike Fisher, our project consultant, is speaking. Mike originally worked with the city in their permitting department, so we were hoping that'd give us a little leverage, but so far it hasn't.
They're good, but they're painfully thorough, so everything will be taken care of.
Mike, what provisions do you have to notify the residents of Boca Chica?
They've all been notified. There's a letter that has gone out saying that these buildings are going to be demolished. And so I went to all of the association, all the boards of the buildings and all the individual homes that had a notice. Well, check your mail. That all went out in the mail. The city provides us a list of all of the owners, or at least the current owners on file with the Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's Office, and a letter goes out to all of them.
Does that include the single family homes as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Smith, 56 Northwest 64th Street. We're almost on the tee of the north course. Regarding the last comment, we're not part of the homeowners association where we live, but we did not get any letters.
Well, all we can say is that I'm sure the letters went out. Mike, I don't know if have we posted that on our website? The notification, and if necessary, we can go back and take a look at the list, and because I know we need to let the neighbors know to be aware of this.
Okay. Also, they're sent out certified return requests. So there is a way to track who received it.
Yeah, I would like to do that, and if the individuals in the audience that did not receive one, we could, if they would just give their name to one of our staff members and their address, we'll make sure we get a copy of that letter that was sent to them.
I'll put some cards up.
Okay, thanks, Brianne. Yeah, we'll have some cards out. Anybody that did not get one that would like to receive one, please let us know. We'll certainly make arrangements to do that.
My name is Dana Strickland, 6500 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I have kind of a two-part question. Is the golf course in any form absolutely going to be done? And then if it's not for any reason, are the buildings still coming down?
You're asking the question if the golf course is going to be done?
In any form, like whether it's option 1, 2, or 3, is it absolutely 100% going to be built in or whatever, conceived or whatever, structure?
Unless we're attacked by Russia, I think we're going to be.
Great, good answer. The second is, so when the buildings come down, is that when you do your feasibility to see what can go there? Like, I was thinking maybe the hotel could go somewhere completely different and maybe you have like the trolleys that take people or something like that. Does the hotel have to stay in that close vicinity to the, because you do have a golf course down there that's not doing anything. What if, like, are you limited by just this area?
Yes, we are. This is the parcel that we have purchased, and I think the hotel parcel is zoned for a hotel, and I know that's a special issue that would have to be dealt with. But on the hotel and the other, we really haven't got that far into it, but we are, as our consultant said, having another consulting organization just look at the feasibility of whether a hotel would be appropriate there. I think someone asked a question about the number of keys. I think originally we were told it was about 140 room hotel. Is that right, Art? But I think we've been back and forth on that issue and really haven't decided whether that's a good thing or not. And we'll have to wait and see what the feasibility study looks like and any impact that it might have on the neighbors. We can certainly take that into consideration.
Harold Chapping, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I have a few things to mention.
Mind that the land up behind Condo 9 is available, but they have actually agreed to basically lease it if they had to. Would that change anything in your design? Was that brought to your attention?
Yeah, I actually have a plan that shows holes up there, and it helped it a little bit, but it didn't help it enough to add a driving range.
Okay, I was thinking about switching the driving range up to the north end. Usually you're always on that property coming down rather than...
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Okay. The only thing that bothers me is the bottom line of the Golf Association report, which is $393,000 profit. $393,000 profit on this whole golf course established with a $45 million loan. That doesn't look too good. How much of an income? Is it?
Where did you get the $45 million, Mr. Chaffee?
Well, we've got $24 million in the land, and basically have another $15 million you're going to borrow.
Don't forget, we'll be requesting some money.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we're going to be working with the city on some.
Still outlay, isn't it?
Yeah, our objective is
if it was a 27 hole, we left it where it was. Actually, the 27 hole with the golf course, the lay it is later right now, will probably bring around $350,000 more than the 18 hole and the second golf course.
But he said
the golf course, the way it is right now, figure right now, would bring in, I have all the figures.
But the architect is recommending that
Am I
they
talking
can't
to
do
them?
that.
I asked them the question, that they consider that. But I also, like I said, I'm concerned about the revenue that we're gonna be bringing down this golf course. The 27 versus the 18 hole.
Yes, as we mentioned, the 27 hole, as initially studied, included full-length driving range conceptually and the golf firing center. As the architects have said, that's not feasible. So that option showed net stabilized operating income a little over 500,000. But it's kind of a moot point since that configuration is not possible physically.
Well, that's
Safety.
not possible with the layout that we have.
I'm sorry?
It's not possible because of the layouts that he's done of the course.
Well, it may be true, but almost every architect that responded to the RFP called NGF and said, why the hell did you recommend 27 hole regulation holes for a range and a driving center? It can't be done. So, and like I said, we didn't recommend it, but we were asked to study that concept. So
The only way other than make us revenue is to bring up the golf fees.
What's your question?
Since we're only bringing some $1,000 worth of report, which is basically just an estimate. The only way you can do it. The only way you could, you have a deficit here. You're only bringing $379,000 to what, a 40-something $1 million investment. Okay, the only way you can bring this figure up is you do with, I think, the low figure of $44. You would have to bring that up to somewhere around $60, $70, just regular play.
To do what?
To even bring up the amount to pay off the debt.
Well, it's never going to pay off the debt. It was never expected to pay off the debt. This is all net operating income. This has nothing to do with paying the debt off. We made a note that it wasn't expected to pay off the debt. We would have never said go ahead with this if it was expected to carry a huge debt load. That was one of the primers we was given.
If it did have a driving range and a learning center, okay, it'd be bringing a hell of a lot more money.
If it didn't have a driving range?
If it did have a driving range, maybe not top notch, maybe 300 yards, 350 yards, not 400, 500 yards. And a learning center, that would bring in a lot more money, right? Is that true?
Well, the best case scenario, if you had the land, if there were no site constraints, yes, 27 regulation holes with a driving range that was safe and long enough, et cetera, for today's equipment, and a golf academy, if there were no site constraints, then yes, it would cash flow better than 18 holes regulation short course golf academy. But again, it's a moot point. The architects are professionals; they've done a lot of this, and it's not possible. It's not safe. It's what we've been told. So we have to go with the professionals on this.
Okay, but it has been there for 30, 40 years. I don't think anybody's been killed on it. It's just. Thank you.
Yeah, I did through myself.
She's a girl. Tony Didino, I live at 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I just had a question for the board, kind of twofold. Number one, the entrance off of Yamato, which is really getting bad. I'm hoping that something is going to be designed to make that look a lot better coming in. Affirmative. And number two is, when are you guys going to vote on option 1, 2, and 3?
Well, at the conclusion of this meeting, the board will have an opportunity to discuss that matter, and if a motion is made, then we'll open it up for discussion if it's seconded, and consider taking a vote at that time.
Thank you.
I know this doesn't feel like golf, but when you play this course, the sound of that corridor of the traffic is just so loud when you're by I-70. Is there any chance that they might get more wall to make it so that you could actually talk to the guy in the cart with? It's so loud, along the corridor with no wall. And my name's Julie Phelps, and I live in San Luis.
Julie, we talking about the corridor around I-95?
Yes, it certainly is something that we will look at.
Hello, Robert Duquette, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. As you know, I've been in favor, and I'm still in favor of 27 holes. The only thing that's restricting this from being 27 holes is the random placement of the clubhouse on the north golf course. If that clubhouse was placed where it has historically been, on the southeast corner, you've got plenty of room for 27 holes. And the National Golf Foundation has, again, said that the Osprey Point is one of the best, most profitable golf courses in the country. I think that having a shorter driving range is not going to hinder. As a matter of fact, most professional golfers or college golfers use a TrackMan type of facility that measures their club head speed, their ball speed, and all of that, which can easily be used on a golf course like this or in a learning facility. The other big question from a cost standpoint is, what's the incremental cost of starting from scratch versus doing a nice reverberation of what we have now from the 27-hole standpoint, including moving the clubhouse over where there's no infrastructure versus on the other side there would be normal infrastructure for the clubhouse construction. Have you looked at it? Is it worth the extra $3, $4, $5 million to have 18 holes in this structure versus doing a really good reverberation? Thank you.
We have the experts here who could probably answer the question about the extra cost of moving the clubhouse from one side to the other. Because I know Art said that the infrastructure or the picketing and all that is already on that northwest corner, correct?
I'm the architect, or will be eventually if you guys decide what you want to do. You come to these meetings and you walk away with the same thing, and I'm late for dinner. The infrastructure for the clubhouse, well, you know, this clubhouse site is not worthy of even further consideration regarding infrastructure. The water, sewer, paving, drainage is going to be already done by the civil engineers. Demolishing that clubhouse and building it across the street or any place there's no consequence, no difference by building it in one location or another. You need a new clubhouse anywhere. That site is not worthy of any more consideration on one side or the other, north or the south side. In fact, the north side allows us probably, depending on what we decide to build or you decide to build, the only thing that's keeping us from making that final decision of the configuration and entering it from, which is one of the big pluses of everything. The north is entering it from Clem, or depending on what functions are in it. Parking is an issue that, of course, that site affords us that opportunity, but there's no real merit in keeping the clubhouse on the site that it is today.
In terms of the golf course renovation versus new construction, and I'll just do renovation versus new construction, surprisingly, it's so close. New construction, you save on, you have a tree, in most cases you have a tree clearing expense, and all the other costs are almost exactly the same. And on renovations, you have a tree relocation expense because you want to save the good trees. And that is really close to the clearing cost. So surprisingly, new construction and renovation is almost identical.
Sally Friedman, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I've lived in Boca for 20 years, and my husband was a golfer. This has been a 27-hole golf course, and everything that you said could not have was there. There was children having lessons in the summer, every summer. There's a driving range. There's schools coming to use the driving range. It was used by Lynn University as well as the high schools. Just because you're reconfiguring it, you're changing it to an 18-hole. And I think that's not very smart. I think 27 is much better. Yes, it was left in bad condition. Why not just fix it? You obviously want the 27.
study license, 6111 Northwest 4th Avenue, the single-family homes on the north course. I know you said you're doing a traffic study, but do you see any concept as far as making forced right turns or forced lefts coming out of Tika Woods or coming out of off 4th Avenue? That's a concern I have. And to Mr. Fazio, are there going to be berms and vegetation that will be blocking the views from the single-family homes and the condos, other than what you said were going to be on the driving range side?
As far as the landscaping goes, we will be relocating the big trees that are in the way of the new design, and so we have to move those to a location. I mean, some will be used in the middle of the fairway, some will be on the side of the fairways, some may be, around homes. Usually the canopies are high enough that you can look under. And then there'll be additional landscaping, which are, most likely will be probably focused a lot more to tropical palms. So it'll be more of a tropical look and probably try to match some of the landscaping that's out there or that's existing on the home. So it just looks like more of the same thing. Does that answer?
So our views won't be blocked or obstructed. You're not going to put up berms and you can't see them.
Yeah, I won't do a lot of berming so that you can't see over the berms, but there will be landscaping. I definitely have to do safety first. So if there's any kind of scenario where there possibly could be errant balls, then we'll protect it with landscaping. What I try to do is I try to put a lot of landscaping in between the two property lines. So I leave a corridor for you to look out, but it's not, so it kind of creates like a shutter effect. So you have your main view, and then your neighbor has your main view, and then the trees would be in between the two of you.
As far as the question on the traffic, that's something we're just going to have to wait for our traffic engineer to give us the decisions on right turns, left turns, whatever. That's something that beyond the scope of our consultant to answer. Mr. Ridgwine has a consultant to address that.
Hello, I'm Rick Hurd. I live at 285 Northeast Spanish Court, which isn't anywhere near this golf course, but I wish it was. Because I really congratulate Tom and Wayne and their organizations for doing a really fantastic job with re-envisioning what can be done with this property. And I know that it has always been 27 holes. And what I would like to encourage everybody to think of is that it will still be 27 holes. It's just a different 27 holes. A much more interesting, a much more playable, a much grander concept of what this property could be. So I think you've done a fantastic job with envisioning this. And when we speak of some of the children and people who were being taught over the last few years, they were being taught by me and the staff who report to me, because I run the Don Law Golf Academy. We were at Ocean Breeze for about 9 years. And I can assure everyone that the facility that was there, while it was usable, was woefully inadequate. The driving range was much too small. The poor people who lived at the end of the driving range in that white house probably were going crazy daily, being bombarded with golf balls, even though the golf course purchased limited flight golf balls, which frankly, from a perspective of a golfer, it's not fun to practice with those golf balls. And you can't really imagine the attraction that a golf course has when it has a really nice practice facility along the lines of what's at Osprey Point. We run the academy at Osprey Point. It's a fabulous facility, in part because of the practice area. And so what you have here with this concept is something really grand, really grander than Osprey Point, with a much better practice facility, the kind that can really attract the colleges, the high school kids. And when we speak of, I know people have talked about a learning center, and the images of little kids running around hitting golf balls about 30, 40, 50 yards. That's not really the case. We have in our academy, we have kids anywhere from 5 years old to 13 years old, and they're great golfers, and they play full-size golf courses, and they really deserve a practice area that's full-sized. So I'm just trying to address some of the issues that came up. I know, Harold, you mentioned the pricing and the revenue. But in my estimation, what we'll have with the 9-hole short course is something, and by the way, the National Golf Foundation used 10,000 rounds a year for that. You're doing 25,000 rounds a year now at Red Reef. And you're doing 25,000, actually 26,000 a year at the Boca Municipal Executive Golf Course. And I'll wager that you won't be able to get a tee time on this short course. This will far outpace those. It'll be very interesting. I'm trusting you're going to do something like the Cradle in Pinehurst, which is an unbelievable facility, and the topography here will lend itself to that. So I think you're going to have a really, really great short course that's going to be extremely popular. You're going to have a fantastic practice facility that's really better than, you'd have to go up to the PGA Village and the Learning Center in Port St. Lucie to try to match it. And you're going to have a great 18 holes of golf and overall 27 full holes. I compliment you on a fantastic design, and I really think that's what we should go with. Thank you for my rambling.
Clarence Smith again. I'd like to emphasize what the gentleman's comments were. And I just reflecting back, when we decided to build this golf course, we went out and sought out competent people who could help design, and it's got world-class experience, and that's, I guess we came back with Price Fazio. And with all their years of experience, and perhaps all over the world maybe, but especially Nick Price, they come back with that knowledge and said, here's our #1 recommendation. And now we seem to have a lot of discussion that, no, we don't want that, we want this, we want that. It's what people are saying is it's less than their #1 recommendation. Why did we choose them as our designer if we're going to say, here's money, design it, and we ignore it? I think we ought to have exactly what this gentleman said.
George O'Rourke, 317 Northeast 3rd Street. Since we're, with the 18 holes, we're losing the flexibility, what is the estimated downtime? And would you be doing the maintenance on full 18 at the same time?
Majority of the golf courses are 18-hole facilities. I mean, so they deal with just shutting down, and there's just many ways that they can manage, you know, the aerification schedules and the the heavier sort of maintenance that they have to do to kind of dethatch everything during the summers. So that will definitely be up to the the staff and the maintenance of how they manage that. I mean, and there's just so many inches of that. You could shut down 9 and still let them play 18 holes. One would be a short course. So yeah, there are definitely advantages of having 27 holes or 36 that so you can shut down. So you're not shutting down, but there's a lot of golf courses that are just 18 holes to deal with.
So is it a week, 2 weeks?
You're asking a very specific question. Are they doing 2 aerifications? Are they doing 1 heavy, 1 light? It's really up to the superintendent how he wants to manage that batch.
I think what we'll see here ultimately is that when you do take 9 holes out of action, and there are only 9 full-size holes to play plus the other 9, is that the intent will be to have people play that other 9 and expose them to a short course, because as we all know, the ego is, I'm too good to play a short course. And by actually almost forcing people to play that 9, I think they will be, more than surprised at the amount of enjoyment that they get from playing that. So I don't see that there's going to be a deterrent from the maintenance side of things at all, because we still have 27, and people will still play the short course. They, you know, to be honest, most people have time on their hands, so they'll play 18. It'll just be a different configuration.
I did speak to a professional golf course maintenance over at Brokentown, and they actually never rest their workforce. So he says if you maintain it correctly, you really never have to rest. You do it right. So that's what he said.
Peggy Hout, 293 Northwest 64th Street. I am the street that is at the end of what was the driving range. I've been living there since 1980, and in all the years that a golf ball has reached my house, I'm like the third one up. It's always been in the front yard, never in the back. So the driving range where it was is definitely a problem. To say let's revamp the golf course, it just doesn't work with today's technology with golf and the balls and the new clubs and all the things that exist. In 1982, I got married and had my wedding reception at that place. So when I listen to what everybody is planning and what everybody has planned for this community, I thank you for it, because it's a whole lot better than Lennar putting in homes. So everybody's efforts, thank
you. Anyone else? I see no hands being raised, and at that point we'll close the discussion and reconvene our meeting that we adjourned across the hall. And
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt option 1 and instruct the Price Fazio Group to commence with the design of the Boca National Golf Club.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions, commissioners? Comments? Greg?
It's been a very long process, and I agree with the homeowners that have pointed out that this is far better than a Lennar home project in the golf course. And you really do have to think about it as we do have a 27-hole golf course, and it is a reinvestment. It's a significant reinvestment, and you could kind of repurpose some of the stuff, but that would be a real travesty. So there is new golf technology. The old driving range over and over won't work. And I tell you, Fazio and Nick Price, their proposal is pretty much what they presented here is pretty much what we saw in the RFP process that we went through earlier. And it's very similar, but I think we've done this process pretty well. And while it's a change, we all have to get used to that level of change. And so I think for me and the rest of the commissioners, we're most interested in the economic viability of some of the features and how that will incrementally pay for this. There are a couple of qualifiers that I would say is, one, there might be some netting. I don't know where they'll be, but I look at the highway there, and I think they're going to not like golf balls hitting them either. So, we also have to look at financing for ourselves of funding this whole thing. It's a huge investment. And so we still have to work with the city and others to arrange the finance. And that will kind of drive where this thing goes.
Thank you, Greg. Steve?
First, I'd like to thank the people at Price Fazio excuse me, for the work that you've done. This has taken a lot of effort. For me, I've been back and forth, 27 holes, 18 holes, 27 holes. Just ask me what time of day it is, and I may have a different answer for you. But in listening to all the arguments and listening to my constituents, to our constituents, my feeling is that this is the biggest bang for our buck. And I understand the feeling of Boca Chica residents. They were very comfortable playing the old golf course the way it was. They liked it. It worked for them. But with all the new technology, with balls designed to travel further, with golf clubs designed to hit them further, I might even be able to hit a golf ball, and that's a tough thing for me. But I think going forward, I think this is the best way to go.
Commissioner Wright, would you like to weigh in? You did. Any further comments?
No, I think they did a fantastic job, especially on the driving range side. I'm not exaggerating, but I think they did a really good job. And if those condos don't really see the driving range, I mean, I understand Boca Chica residents, they don't want like a driving range in their backyard. Is that like the main concern from Boca Chica, is that they don't have a driving range in their backyard? Or do they just want the 27 holes to have the 27 holes?
Well, I think you have to draw your own conclusions from the comments. I think the concerns were answered with the relocation of the course, with the way it's going to be buffered from the condominiums. So not looking at a driving range, and the driving range is set up, as Mr. Fazio said, so that the tees, or the tee box itself, is angled so that you're driving toward the railroad tracks, which away from homes. I would just like to comment that we went through 17 different golf course architects and spent the first part of January and February. We did interviews, and then after we got the top 10, we selected 5, and we re-interviewed them, and Price Fazio was superior in so many ways to the firms that we interviewed, and we had some really good ones, and whether it's Trent Jones or Craig Norman, there was some Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicholas, all responded to our RFP, and these gentlemen have done their homework. I'm pleased with the concept. I must say I was a 27-hole person until I listened to the logic of 18 and the way that they laid the course out, and have to say that would be my preference. And at this point, I'd like to call the question. There's a motion on the floor to approve option number 1 proposed by the Price Fazio team. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. Mr. Garcia, good to work. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, I just want to say one thing real quickly. Thank you to everybody for your persistence and your patience as we went through this process. It wasn't easy, and we appreciated your input. We took it all into serious consideration, and we're going to do our best to fulfill the obligation we had to you to put you in a world-class golf course at Boca Chica. Wayne, comment?
Just sorry, the last point, to let the district and obviously everybody else know that our preliminary understanding of what this golf course is going to cost, and that's at this point saying like what's a house going to cost, but we're at between $9.5 and $11.5 million at this point. As we go forward, now that we understand exactly what we're building, we'll be able to refine that further and define everything that's within that over the next couple of weeks and months with you.
Thank you.
But essentially that is the construction of the golf course. It doesn't include roadways or engineering. It's just the building of the golf course to the completion of the golf
Thank you, Wayne. Keep your pencil sharp, of course, in that process. And on behalf of the Commission, Wayne and Tommy Fazio, thank you very much for going through this process. I think this is the best way to put out a public project, to have full disclosure, and to hear the word transparency all the time. And I hope that our constituents feel like that we were completely transparent in this process, because it means a lot to us to be able to have the integrity to put something like this out for you.
Thank you, Robert. And I just would like to say thank you very much to the rest of our team here. They're our silent partners, but they're vital to this process. And Charlie Putman, our land planner, Jeff Schnoz, our engineer, Carol Perez, our landscaper, and of course, George Garcia, our clubhouse architect. Thank you very much for being here tonight and for all your support.
Commissioners, under the agenda, there's an opportunity for the Executive Director, District Council, or Commissioners to make any comments. If there's anything else you'd like to say before I accept a motion to adjourn?